The distinction between regular and irregular verbs in English stems from the language's complex history and the way it has evolved over centuries. Here's a clear explanation of why this distinction exists and how it developed. 1. Historical development of English. English has its roots in Germanic languages, brought to Britain by Anglo-Saxon tribes around the 5th century. Early Old English, spoken during this period, had a system of verb conjugation inherited from Proto-Germanic, which relied on internal vowel changes to indicate tense. Regular verbs. In Old English, verbs often followed consistent patterns when forming past tense and past participles. Over time, as English simplified its grammar, losing complex inflections and case systems, a new, simpler way of conjugating verbs emerged. This system involved adding ed, or its variants, to the base form of verbs, which became the hallmark of regular verbs. Irregular verbs, older patterns of forming past tense through vowel changes, called strong verbs, persisted in many commonly used verbs. These verbs didn't adopt the new ed rule, partly because their forms were already deeply ingrained in the language due to their frequent usage. 2. Frequency of use. Irregular verbs tend to be common, high-frequency words like go, come, see, eat, give, and be. These words were so widely used that they resisted the regularization process, as people were accustomed to their unique forms. Less common verbs were more likely to conform to the new ed rule over time. Example, sing right pointing arrow sang, retains irregularity because of frequent use, talk right pointing arrow talked, regularized because it's less ancient or less irregular to begin with. 3. Borrowing from other languages. English has borrowed extensively from other languages, particularly Latin, French, and Norse. Borrowed verbs often adapted to the regular ed pattern because it was easier for speakers to apply the rule consistently to new words. Example, Latin origin, act right pointing arrow, acted French origin, love right pointing arrow loved. 4. Simplification and gradual change. Language constantly evolves, and over time, many irregular verbs have become regular. For example, Old English had more than 300 strong, irregular, verbs. Today, fewer than 200 remain. This is due to speakers tending toward easier, more predictable patterns. Less frequently used irregular verbs being forgotten or regularized. Example, old irregular verb, help, past tense, holp, modern regular form, helped. 5. Irregularity is a remnant of the past. Irregular verbs are essentially linguistic fossils, preserving older patterns of conjugation that date back to Old and Middle English. These verbs remain irregular because they are used so often that their forms stay fixed in memory. They reflect older, pre-regularization systems of the language. Summary: regular verbs follow a predictable pattern, ed, because English evolved to favor simplicity and consistency for most verbs. Irregular verbs are exceptions that reflect the historical roots of English, preserving ancient patterns of conjugation. They tend to be high-frequency verbs that resisted regularization due to their widespread usage. This combination of history, borrowing, and usage frequency explains why some verbs are regular while others are irregular.